Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, you betcha, yeah.
If it's made in Minnesota, who's making it and how?
Yeah, you got that right.
It's the Makers of Minnesota, focusing on the products and services uniquely made in Minnesota, and conversations with the makers, entrepreneurs, and innovators in Minnesota about how they conceived of their products and how they brought them to market. With Stephanie Hansen, it's the Makers of Minnesota.
Welcome to the Makers of Minnesota podcast. I'm Stephanie Hansen, your host, and this is episode number 82. And we are here with Connor Ray from Jonny Pops. His partner, Eric Bruce, is not here today, but it is a big day for you, Connor, because you have brought into my studio 5 new flavors of Jonny Pops. Do we call them ice cream treats, fruit treats? What's the word that you use?
You know, we typically call them Jonny Pops, but they're frozen treats. You know, when we explain them to people to be a little bit more descriptive, we call them smoothies on a stick. They're a better tasting, better for you frozen treat, and yes, they are on a stick. Okay,
we have lots to talk about here.
Of course.
First of all, your origin story of how you came to name these Jonny Pops is heartbreaking, but I think says a lot about you as a human and you as your company. Tell me about why you call them Jonny Pops.
Yeah, so the name Jonny Pops comes from way back when I started the business with Eric and a group of our college friends at St. Olaf in 2011. And there was this group of us who were interested in starting a business and talking about ideas. And Eric brought forward the idea for a better for you frozen treat. And it was actually a concept that he had come up with several years prior to us meeting at school. At this point, we were sophomores at school, so this was even several years before that. And he had come up with this concept with his cousin, Jonathan. And they had started thinking about what it might take to bring this idea to market. And while they were working on the concept, unfortunately, Jonathan passed away as a result of a drug overdose. And so very understandably, the idea kind of stopped moving forward at that point until we met at school and started talking about it again.
So please take this the right way, but what kind of dorks are you guys that you're sophomores in college sitting around in your dorm room thinking about your entrepreneurial ideas? What were some of the other ideas that you threw out?
It actually started, initially we thought we would be potentially something like investment hotshots.
Sure.
We actually all dug into our relatively skinny pocketbooks and pulled out a few dollars and started saying, well, what if we trade this on the stock market? You know, can we be the next big hedge fund or something like that? And we very, very quickly realized that wasn't, all that it was cracked up to be. And so we started thinking about, okay, how could we do something that was maybe going to give us a little bit better chance to do what we wanted to do, that we were maybe better at.
Yeah.
And accomplish things more in line with our goals of making something, of making a difference. And so that's when this idea came up. And of course, the whole backstory came with it at that point in time. And so Eric thought the idea still had lots of potential. We agreed with him, but had to recognize sort of what had happened with the concept and the idea before and Jonathan. And so that's where the name came from. We decided this idea does have a lot of potential. The product, there's a niche for it, a demand for it, and we can, call the brand Jonny Pops. And we adopted the motto at that point in time. And it's on the back of every box we sell today, a better pop for a better world. And the first part of that was and still is donating a portion of our proceeds to supporting addiction and recovery research and rehabilitation. And so that was the beginning. It was an idea. It was a name, Jonny Pops, making better for you, better tasting frozen treats. And that was 2011. And now fast forward to 2018, and here we are today.
And here you are. Have you just introduced 5 new flavors, and you were recognized as one of the Forbes 30 under 30, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that was a absolutely fantastic recognition of all the hard work that our team has put in over the past several years to take us from an idea, in a dorm basement, to the shelves of retailers, nationwide.
Yeah.
You've got Target, a great partner of ours, local retailers like Lunds & Byerly's, Kowalski's, Cub Foods, and even to mass, to warehouse clubs like Costco are great places where you can find us.
Yeah, Jonny Pops are everywhere. And as part of the Forbes 30 under 30, what I thought was interesting, because I went into the food and drink category, and you were tied with maybe one or two other people for being the youngest in the under 30 category. You're only 25.
I suppose that's what happens when you're dorky enough to be sitting around at 18, or I guess maybe it was 19 years old, and start working on it. I think it takes time to develop an idea.
And you will certainly have the last laugh, my friend. When you started the company, you started it with Eric. And how much money, do you remember how much money you started it with?
Oh, very, very little. I mean, when we sort of rolled over the investment opportunities, that we had before this, it was less than $5,000 that we started with to do research and development. And we've always done our own manufacturing. So, we were doing things like buying prototyping molds off of Amazon and going, down to the local food stores to buy ingredients to test.
Yeah.
And, it's been a very, very bootstrapped organization. And because of that, for the first several years, we did things like farmers markets, because it was a way not only for us to interact directly with our consumers, but to create cash flow. We had to take the product direct to market to have the chance to bootstrap it until we had, grown it to a size where we could take it to a retailer and have them do some of the selling for us. But of course that comes at a cost. Now you have to have room for the retailer, and because we're a frozen product, our product doesn't just walk itself onto the shelves. It has to stay frozen from the time it leaves our manufacturing facility until it reaches the store shelves. And and that can be a long, complicated, and sometimes expensive process. And
it's interesting that when you look at products that have refrigeration needs or perishable needs, it does sort of throw you into a whole nother complexity of category.
Absolutely.
One thing that I'm really impressed by is the way that you have a very unique brand, and also the brand it's a logo, it's a font, it's a color, it's a lifestyle, it's a feeling. You have slogans on the sticks that are sort of empowering messages and positivity.
Yeah, that was a fantastic part of the brand that we started testing. A year or two after we started it, we were looking for more ways to tie in that mission, that Better Pop for a Better World mission, with the people who were, enjoying the product. And, what we thought of is, well, some people put a joke on the stick. Some people put a quote on the stick. And we really wanted to encourage everyone to make the world a better place. We obviously felt like we were trying to do our part, and, and the way that we contributed, after, in Jonathan's name, to the cause. And, but we wanted to get everyone involved. And so we put these, what we call Better World challenges on every stick that are just little good deeds that encourage everyone to pay it forward. And, and we coined the phrase, make the world a better place, one pop at a time, to really create that interaction and make sure that everyone could be a part of it and feel good about, eating the product. That's why we take pride in our simple ingredient statement and formulation and, low calorie counts, better for you nutritionals, but also in sharing the story and in sharing the good deeds and the whole, the feeling of being able to share something that you feel good about.
It's funny listening to you, because I'm trying to figure out whether is it because the product, it is a great tasting product.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. It's a good tasting product. And I can't figure out if it's the story that sold it or the product, because it tastes so good, sold it. What do you think was your ace in the hole?
Well, I mean, I absolutely believe that this story is an interesting story. Whether it's the fact
really
that we were so young and in college and students when we started it, or you love the cause, that we stand for, or it's the, the branding that ropes you in. I think all of that is interesting, and it draws people in and gives us a chance for them to try the product. And we think that's all very important, and we care very deeply about the mission and the brand. But a key part of the brand, it's a better pop for a better world. And so a key part of it is the better pop.
It has to be
fundamentally, for a food product, we believe you have to win with a great taste and texture and fantastic product that people want to come back for and enjoy. And I think that's what keeps the brand growing, is we don't just get someone to be intrigued and try it once. we get them to be intrigued and we get them to try it, and then they realize that, wow, it's lower in calories, fat, and sugar, and the ingredients list is simple and clean, and I'm not giving up something delicious here. This is not a compromise.
No, it's just tasty in its own right.
A great, tasty, better for me treat that I can enjoy whenever I want to, and that's, we don't release products. It took us a long time to release 5 new products.
Yeah.
And that's because we didn't believe in releasing products that were just sort of Me Too's or that didn't deliver fully on that brand promise of these are going to be great tasting, made with simple ingredients, and people are going to love them.
So if we, one of the new flavors you have is this cherry chocolate and cream. It is, we joked, it's kind of like a cherry Garcia, but it's on a stick. It's this cherry, Michigan cherry formulation with a robe of dark chocolate, and it's one of the new flavors. You mentioned that you sold that at the State Fair. It's spectacular. Yeah, so we debuted a cherry product at the State Fair several years ago, and that was actually themed after the cherry on a spoon sculpture. So rather than our standard stick, in partnership with the Walker Art Center, we had spoon-shaped sticks that went in there, and then it was that tart cherry dipped in dark chocolate, and it was met with rave reviews. It got 4 out of 4 stars. It was called the best new product on a stick, at the fair when we released it. And those were all great things. But what people were sad about is that the State Fair is only 14 days long. Exactly.
And it wasn't available at their favorite retailer, wherever they were buying the product. And so for the past several years, every fall we go through this cycle of, where can I buy these? When are these going to be available at my favorite retailer? And, finally, after getting some friends for that cherry chocolate product, we released a line of 5 new, what we call our Delights flavors that are more, that are not necessarily fruit focused, although the cherry one does happen to include cherries as well, but our root beer float, our vanilla mint dipped in dark chocolate, our dark chocolate product, and our cold pressed coffee dark chocolate product. We've now got this great line that appeals to people who weren't necessarily thinking I'm going to the store looking for a fruit product. We're happy that people can finally get it. And I got to say, wherever we are here, a week or two into them being on shelves and only 3 or 4 days after we sort of, told people they're there, that particular flavor has been flying off the shelves.
It's a total winner. And your product was one that I would eat at a festival or I would eat in the summertime, but I wouldn't probably buy it in the wintertime. It's just not my thing, and I don't have kids, so it's not really my speed. The cream and the chocolate and this I guess I'm calling it an adult line, and it's not. We'll call it the Delight line, which is how you call it on your website, is something I would buy 24/7.
Yeah, we see people purchasing the product year round. Certainly there's seasonal upswings and seasonal downswings, but people, Minnesotans are hardy.
Yes.
They're happy to enjoy a treat at any time of the year. It's actually funny. If you look at the week-by-week sales data, you'll see the first time it gets cold, it's like everyone's like, oh, no, I can't buy ice cream. It's cold. And then like a week or two later, everyone's like, well, never mind. I still want it. I still want it anyways. I still want to buy it. But we are getting into spring here, and of course, that always gets people back in. It's sort of the inverse happens.
Yeah.
It's, a bump in the other direction of, oh, right, there is this time of the year when it's warm and sunny and outdoors. And then, of course, we timed the launch to capitalize on the fact that warmth and summer treats are on people's mind.
I do love the other part of your business. So you've got the Delight line, the fruit line, which is what you started with. And then you have this thing called Smart Snacks that you have marketed to schools.
Correct. Yeah. So we started actually before we ever sold any product to a retailer. We started, as I mentioned, with the farmers markets. And then we started to selling to like vendors who would be out around, the lakes in Minneapolis or at the Minnesota Zoo and sell pops, one by one to people who were out and about and wanted a treat. And that's where we started. And eventually what that turned into is there's companies that distribute to those vendors and they're food service distributors. And those companies brought in our products, and once you start working with a food service distributor, that opens up the avenue to all sorts of restaurants and hospitals and corporate campuses and schools. And so schools started encountering our products through these companies who they were buying their other food from, and through some partnership there, we found out about it. And eventually, must have been about 2012, the federal government implemented a set of regulations called Smart Snacks for Schools. And our full-size products didn't quite meet the criteria for those programs. Now, we were very close, much closer than most ice cream. And so some schools came to us and said, we were using your product. It's so close. It's just a little bit too big. We need you to make like these one or two small changes. We don't think they're very big, but you should know about this whole regulation that just happened, and it might be an opportunity for you guys. And so rather than actually just making a few small changes, we said, thanks for bringing us this information. What if we didn't just make a small change? What if we actually worked with you to develop a product that really fit, like checked all the boxes that you could be looking for, to make it a great fit for your program and your needs as school food service professionals and for using with your kids. And we work with them for several months to totally go back to the drawing board and say, okay, we make it smaller, we pack it differently, it gets more efficient for everyone. We work on some special flavors that are going to really, be a hit with kids in schools. And we launched a totally new set of products that checked all those boxes for schools and made it very attractive. And so we now have 2 flavors in that side of our business that we can that schools can use. They can sell to kids through the a la carte line, and it makes a fantastic addition, to their menus instead of a cookie or, a vanilla chocolate ice cream sundae cup.
That was so smart.
It's great for the kids. It's over 50% real fruit. And it's really teaching them that message that the schools are trying to impart to the kids of food can be both delicious and better for you.
So if we're looking at 100% of your sales, the Delight line is brand new, so we don't have statistics from that yet. But the fruit line and the Smart Snacks, what percentage of the business is this Smart Snacks school side?
It's been the fastest growing part of our business because
so.
it was several years behind. We didn't actually launch that product until at least 2014. I think it was our sort of test year.
Yeah.
We piloted it just in the local markets, and at that point we had distribution on our other product lines in at least 15 states. And so since then, it's really been a game of catch up, and it's been very, very growing very, very quickly. And we certainly hope that in the long run, it can be as much as an equal partner in our business as our retail line. Because, and this is a sort of a fun bonus fact, the schools and their lunch programs are the biggest, I'll call them restaurant operation in the country. They use more food than pretty much anything else. And it's a great, it's a great product. There's not a lot else filling that niche that has.
So if you can get into that side, it's lucrative.
It is. It's something where it's a set of government programs. There's not a lot of ability, to price, to take price there. So we do it as a way to, keep people working at our plant through the winter, which was traditionally our off-peak months, and provide a product that we really think was missing and fills a great niche there. And, in the long run, as we grow and we get scale, at the end of the day, yes, it's a part of our business we want to have, but, it's certainly not the most lucrative part of the business just because it's the government, the government programs, and they're trying to be efficient in what they can bring in and serve to kids every day.
But it's also maybe a marketing side too, where the kids learn about the products. We've certainly taken that view on it as well.
Yeah. If it's going to be something that we do in a very efficient manner, can we still make sure we're putting out products that we can stand behind with the Jonny Pops name, that are truly embodying that better pop and better world mission, and that that we can put the brand on it and people will have had a chance to taste and experience what that name means and potentially encounter it somewhere else down the line and know that I've had a chance to experience it before.
So you've always been making your own product. Did you ever have it where you were with a co-packer, or did you just keep buying equipment and growing and making it yourself?
We have always done our own manufacturing. And as we've grown, we've learned that there are some things that we do in our product, and our product is unique. If you go out to the grocery store and you look in the aisle, there's nothing else that has that smoothie on a stick consistency where you're getting that creaminess, that vibrant flavor. It's so high in fruit content on
very
the fruit
fruit
flavors.
Forward, yep.
Exactly. And part of the reason is it's very difficult to manufacture that way. That is not standard. If you go look at a frozen yogurt bar, you go look at an ice cream bar, they're different. and even a water ice fruit bar.
Yeah.
Which is what so many of the fruit bars are. They're water and ice, and then maybe some coloring or flavoring, other things thrown in there. But the way that you manufacture those is very different from what we do, and then you get a very different product at the end. And so we developed our process for manufacturing our product from the ground up with the end in mind of we're not going to change the end product that the consumer's enjoying because that's what we stand for. We're going to change the way we do the manufacturing. And if you start working with contract manufacturers, it almost works the other way around. And, that's the way big companies sometimes do development is here's our list of capabilities. What could the capabilities produce? And that we weren't willing to compromise on product. We said the product has to be this. So then how do we work backwards to develop that process? And, it's so many things. It's hundreds and thousands of just different tweaks to this traditional manufacturing processes that have allowed us to consistently produce that high quality texture, flavor profile that people now understand as being that smoothie on a stick Jonny Pops texture.
So to introduce 5 new products, how did you get to the number of 5? And can you put is it, each new product costs us $10,000 to develop, or how did you get to where you are today?
Well, the number 5 is more straightforward, probably a less interesting answer than I wish it was. When you look at our product on shelf at a grocery store, in a standard grocery freezer door, 5 boxes fit across a shelf.
Okay.
And so it was a logical number to say we want to add another shelf of distribution to our stores. Because it just looks funny. If you look at a shelf and it's, cut with all sorts of different brands and products, it's kind of confusing to stare at, makes it more difficult to find, and makes retailers hesitant to do it sometimes. And so 5 was a number we intentionally said, this is logical, this makes sense. To get to 5 products, though, we started with, hundreds might be an exaggeration, but with a pretty long list of potential flavor ideas that our team came up with. We talked to everyone in the organization, whether you're out there selling product or you're on the floor making product or you're, processing payments in our accounting department about what idea, we solicit ideas from everyone to say,
what was
would
the
you
weirdest one?
Oh, the weirdest one?
Where you were just like, no. I
don't know. Citrus and dairy have some interesting reactions because of the acidity and the pH, and so I don't know that the citrus ideas necessarily sound bad, like lemon lime or lemonade. Great. They sound good in principle, but I can tell you they're kind of funky when we tested them.
Yep.
And we do have long-term aspirations to maybe research our way out, to out of those problems. Sure. Because I think they are flavors that generally appeal to people, but those ended up being some of the funkier flavors that we tested. And, we had this, it wasn't just what tastes great too. It's also where are the holes in the market?
Yeah.
But what are the flavor profiles that people really enjoy that we can make that taste great? It's sort of an overlapping set of ideas here. What can we produce that tastes great, in our format? And what's gonna fit in the marketplace? What's gonna fly off the shelf once we put it out there?
How many people are in your company?
As of right now, we have about 42 people.
That is incredible.
Yeah, and it stems from the fact that we make the product ourselves, and everything that entails, whether it be the, ongoing maintenance and upkeep of our facility to the planning and procurement side of our business, because we take great care with what we use to make the product because we don't cover it up. I use the example of our strawberries. We buy some of the best strawberries in the world. Because if I don't buy the best strawberries in the world, I don't get any color or any flavoring to cover up whatever deficiencies might exist in the fruit. So we actually look at testing on every single batch of strawberries that comes into our possession. Before we buy it, we say, okay, we need this quantity, and we need to look at every individual batch and run testing on it so that it meets these specific criteria to bring it in. And that's a lot of work. That's when you talk about commodities, a lot of times people want to just homogenize everything and say, well, it's all the same. And we say, no, that's not true. And that's not acceptable because we won't be able, if it comes in and it's not ripe or it's sour or it doesn't taste right, then that's what our consumer at the end of the day is going to taste. And that's not the better pop for a better world experience that we stand for.
And you and Eric are partners. Are you both 50-50?
At this point in time, we've had other people, involved in the business as we've grown. As we've grown and built out our manufacturing plant, we've had, support of local investors and people who have been,
Sure.
Historical members of the food and egg community here
Yep.
in Minnesota. So at this point, it's a little bit more diverse than that. But that's allowed us to get to where we are today and preserve and build the
absolutely.
team and bringing great people to the team. Eric and I wouldn't be here today if we didn't have the support of the people selling the product and making the product and marketing the product.
Sure.
And we just wouldn't have done it all ourselves. We couldn't have done it all ourselves. And a lot of the credit for the 5 new flavors, for the Forbes 30 under 30, for everything we've accomplished goes to that group of people. And let alone then on top of that, the need to actually continue to expand our physical plant because we
Right.
are doing the manufacturing ourselves. And we're proud of that. And that we wouldn't go back and do it any differently.
Right. Did you have to ask investors for money?
Yeah, over time, that's what happens as the business grows, and you look at opportunities that present themselves, and you say that's undeniably what's right for our business. We need to seize that opportunity. We need to grow, and then you back into that and say, great. So what does that mean? Well, it means things like you need these people on the team.
Mm-hmm.
You need these capabilities operationally. You need these capabilities to produce. You need these capabilities to deliver. And you figure out what that means. And if that means that you need to have access to capital, then, we...
You go do a road show.
Exactly. You go figure out what it takes to bring that capital into the business.
I don't mean to belabor the fact that you're 25, because I think coming from someone who's older like me, it can be like, oh, and you're only 25. But you're very well spoken. You're very
Thank you.
articulate. You're an incredibly smart young man. You guys have grown this company and you're doing great work. Was your family entrepreneurs, or how did you get the bug when you were sitting there in college in your room?
Well, I'll start with Eric because I think he's got the more interesting answer. Eric comes from a family of entrepreneurs. At a minimum, both his grandfather and his father started businesses that were very successful.
Yep.
And I think from a very young age, he was very interested in that idea. I don't necessarily come from a family of entrepreneurs. I've personally been always very interested in the idea, from the sort of books that you read growing up, the Steve Jobs of the world.
Sure.
And the Elon
Sure.
Musks and, people who, when you're 13, 15 can be, sort of potential idols. And you look and say, what's the same about all these people? And you say, well, they all started a business that was very successful and were able to have these big impacts on the world. And that was certainly always an interest to me. If you'd asked me going into college what my, plan was, I would have told you, well, I think that I need a business and economics, side of my education.
Yep.
I also, as a result of understanding, these, you can call them leaders that I saw out there, I think there's a need for a sort of STEM side of education as well, to have some understanding of technical problem solving and technical proficiency. And then I'll graduate, I'll go get an engineering degree or an MBA or
Yep.
some combination thereof, work in corporate America for 15 to 20 years, figure out what my big idea is, and then go start it. Like, that would have been the roadmap I laid out for you. And I would have told you, I think I eventually want to go do this whole idea of business, but I have no idea what it actually means. That would have been 18-year-old, Connor saying, this is what I think the plan is. And at the end of the day, an opportunity came along to learn about what starting a business, running a business was. And, it started as a great opportunity to learn. And it still is a fantastic opportunity to learn. I learn something at least one thing every day, when I go to work. But it blossomed into so much more than that as well.
So just this week, tell me something that you learned.
Oh, goodness. I don't know. One of the biggest changes that our organization has gone through is 2 years ago, we weren't at 42 people.
Right.
We were at 15. And so now I work with a lot more people on a daily basis.
And that's got to be challenging.
And a huge, shift in the way that work gets done now, for me personally and for our organization as a whole, is how do you make that effective? How do you go from being
Mr. Hands-on and knowing everybody to
knowing everyone, trying to understand everything that's going on constantly, to giving people the opportunity to take ownership for
Yep.
their areas of responsibility, so that, you try to bring in people who are better than you at the area that you're bringing them in for.
Yep.
Not to say I'm going to bring in someone who's better than me at, engineering to be our production engineer and repairs and maintenance. Like, that's the ideal scenario, right? And then
Yep.
you can work on continuing to push the big picture forward. But it can be hard to let go, even if that's the ideal you have in your mind is, great, this person is an expert at this. We have more expertise and experience than I've ever had at it. But then empowering them to actually take that ownership and be better at it than you ever were. And that's how you move the company forward to the next level. But it's a total shift in the way
Yep.
that not only myself, but, Eric and the entire organization work and lead and manage. I mean, it's a big shift to make for an organization in
Yeah.
a very short amount of time.
It is.
And the ways to do that effectively are the things I probably learn most often right now. It's like, well, that was an adequate way to do things 8 months ago. But now we've got 2 new people in that area of the company, and no longer is this an effective way to process, method of communication,
And scale,
whatever it might be. Yeah,
and,
exactly.
trying to, someone told me once, I was a real doer in my business, and someone told me once, you don't necessarily have to make the fries. I was like, oh, that's really good advice. Yeah, and it wasn't until I kind of took that advice to heart and really figured out, okay, do I have the right systems here so that if I'm not here, someone knows what their job is, knows how to do it. Just identifying operationally all that stuff is challenging.
Well, working with great people, I think, is and should be very humbling. You bring in great people for a reason. Everyone says aspirationally, I want to have the best team that I work with. But, it's a very humbling experience to work with a group of people who are very talented and experienced and bring a lot to the table, because they do all of that, and hopefully they're bringing ideas and thoughts and experiences that are different. That's, again, everyone can understand this in the ideal. That's what I want to have happen. But when that actually happens, are you able to respond effectively and manage the inherent conflict that can create among different people with different experiences and produce the right, best outcome for the business and have that, have that system function well and manage everyone's expectations and conflict. And it's just different. It's very different as you have teams that grow in size.
Okay, so another sort of age-related question, and then I promise it'll be the last one. But so at being 25, you at this point are hiring people that are probably much senior to you.
Absolutely.
Is that weird, or do you ever feel like, here's someone, I'm just going to make up, Mike the engineer, and he's old enough to be your dad, and you have to talk to him or figure out how to work through some kind of issue at work? Does that ever enter your mind?
It certainly has. I guess I will say it certainly was something to wrap your mind around.
It would be.
At this point, it's happened, enough that you learn how to approach those conversations. I don't think, initially, of course, it's going to be something that's in the back of everyone's mind.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when it comes down to either, bringing someone in to do a job, and then certainly once they're on the team, it's how can we create a productive, relationship and process here to not have that be something that's going to get in our way. That gets in the way.
It's probably helpful, too, that you have Eric to kind of bounce ideas off of or be like, wow, dude, this was so weird.
I absolutely believe that that's one of the things that's really allowed us to succeed is Eric and I have, I think, very complementary skill sets and frequently slightly varied viewpoints. Not so varied that, we're on polar opposites.
Yeah.
But varied enough that, bouncing ideas off of each other is very useful and frequently produces a better outcome. And maintaining that dynamic as we've grown has also been something that has been challenging at times. We've put more focus around is how can we not lose that interaction and that, almost call it a foil, of we believe produces great value for the organization and
right.
strategy
You need
and
a kind of yin
ideation.
and yang.
And history tells us that that's a good thing. How do we preserve that while growing in breadth and scope and responsibility and all these other things? And I would credit that with the fact that we have the two of us, the fact that we have Eric with as much success as anything.
Yep. Well, it's been really fun to sit with you. I feel sort of honored that you took the time. Just as the week that you've introduced the 5 new flavors. It is Connor Ray, it's Jonny Pops, and I'll let you tell me about all your 5 new flavors. Just run them down so if people run to the grocery store, they can find them.
Absolutely. So first off, we did sort of a reformulation, improved formulation of our old coffee chocolate flavor. It's now called cold press coffee and chocolate.
Yum.
It's just a little bit creamier. The notes are a little bit stronger. And as we made some more of these non-fruit flavors, we just frankly got better at it.
Yeah.
And so we improved that flavor in particular. We also added, after much requesting, a just plain dark chocolate and cream pop. I would describe it as the best fudgesicle you've ever had.
Oh, yum.
We make it with a dark chocolate. It's super vibrant and flavorful, like all of our products. And I mean, I can't tell you the number of people who would be sampling that coffee chocolate product and say, "Oh, it's a chocolate flavor." No, it's coffee and chocolate. Well, now there is truly
a chocolate flavor.
A chocolate flavor available. We also have, another very popular flavor set is our vanilla mint, which is dipped in a chocolate.
Yum.
Vanilla and mint chip ice cream are some very popular flavor profiles out there, and I think our take on it is just fantastic. It's very fresh, very light, and I love the products that are dipped in chocolate. I think
they're really good.
They're really good
one
and really
before
fun.
We came on air.
Our other chocolate dip flavor is the one we were talking about earlier, that tart cherry dipped in the chocolate. You can call it our take on Cherry Garcia. It's obviously sort of the hybrid of that fruit line as well as this Delights line, but it's absolutely fantastic. And I think of all the new flavors, potentially my favorite.
Yep.
Obviously, I'm a little biased, but just a fantastic flavor. And then a unique flavor profile that we saw a huge appetite for, and this was one where it's a hole in the market. When we were doing our internal testing, just off the charts on how much people love this one, but I don't think a lot of people know it's sort of a dark horse. You got to try it to believe it, but it's our root beer float flavor. And that one is just, I think it's going to be really exciting for people to try that one. It's unique, it's different, and it's really a fun sort of new flavor addition as a whole to the frozen treat category because it's not out there.
Yeah. And it makes you think like affogato, or you know how you put ice cream in the espresso. I could see that being something down the road too.
Yeah, and the best part about all of these is they're all 190 calories or less. Even though they're not the fruit first flavors, they're still much better for you than a traditional ice cream treat. Lower in sugar, calories, fat, simple, clean ingredient statements. We use things like vanilla extract and, the real tart cherries.
Connor, I think you should run for office because you're so good about staying on message. My word. You really sold me. I was sold before because I think your products are great, but I'm really excited to see where these new products take you. So in a year, I'm going to come back and we're going to do a phone interview and you're going to tell me how they ended up and if the cherry chocolate and cream ends up to be a winner for you. Will you be at the State Fair again this year?
We will be at the State Fair again this year.
And will you try something new? And
I am not allowed to disclose our plans for the State Fair. They take great pride every year in announcing the fun new things that are going to be happening out at the State Fair.
So I think it's safe to say they're going to be there.
Always keeping our ideas flowing for fun things to do out there. It's such a great event. If we're going to chat again in a year, do you want to take a pick on which of these 5 new flavors that you think is going to be the best seller over that period of time?
Yes. I am going to say I'm going to say the mint.
All right, I'll put my money where my mouth was and say that the cherry chocolate
could be right.
is going to be the lead horse in this race.
It all looks real good and beautiful packaging. Connor, thank you for being here today.
Oh, of course. Thank you so much for having us.
I can't wait for us to help spread your story.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.